is Slafkovsky. Caulfield puts it out front, swatted out there, and Newhook can't find the back of the net because Andersen gets a piece.
Oh, baby. Hi, everyone. It's the Canes Corner podcast. I'm Adam Golden. Thank you very much for hanging out with me here at PNC Arena. With a little bit of a new setup, or a different setup, not a new setup today. When the Montreal Canadiens are in town, they have not only TV and radio, they also have TV and radio in multiple languages. So we run out of space. So we are kicked to we're in the cupboard under the stairs. Let's see how many people get what I just referred to. But anyway, we're here. Pardon the lighting a little bit, but frankly, you're not here to see me. You're here just to listen to maybe even a little crow being eaten. We'll see. We'll get to all of it. We're brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it's for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Hannon and crew do a great job. You should check them out at aluminumcompany.com for all of your exterior home improvement needs. There are three things we're going to discuss tonight, and that's it. Three things only. We're not even going to talk about the game, really, other than, holy crap, Brady Skjei did the thing tonight. Because we're going to talk about the goaltender who played. We're going to talk about the deadline, and we'll get to the game just a little bit. But we're going to start with the trade deadline, because for many people, and this is for the people who are tuning in to say, Gold, you said they wouldn't. And we're sitting here now, and for those people who are joining us live, it is just after 10:40 Eastern time. Shouts to those of you hanging out in Australia or wherever you are, Alaska, Hawaii, Finland. I'm not sure. Wherever you are, thank you very much. Man, by the way, we're gaining all sorts of new viewers and followers and all of that. So I do appreciate it. So tell your friends. If you tell two people and they tell two people, we're going to have 4 people listening in no time. So subscribe and like and pass it on. So we still have about, I can't do the math, 16 hours, 17 hours until the trade deadline is up. So A, nothing's official yet. B, I think Carolina's not done if, in fact, they do pull off this trade with the Pittsburgh Penguins for Jake Guentzel. Because when you look at it, Guentzel or Michael Bunting and whatever else goes the other way, and I have some ideas about what it is. With all of that, it does appear that Carolina will get Jake Guentzel into the lineup as soon as he is eligible to come off of IR. And I believe that he will be a very good addition for this team the rest of the way. And I think they're going to make every effort to sign him to a contract, which would make all of this work for them. And I do believe that in many ways, the hesitation to sign him to a contract or to announce this deal is because they are trying to sign him to a contract. They don't want Jake Guentzel to get into the open market July 1 and then go to the highest bidder, because I don't think Carolina is going to be the highest bidder. But I think Jake Guentzel will have a very good long career with the Hurricanes if, in fact, this is where he ends up. So let's start there, because I've never believed. So this year is certainly the outlier in the Tom Dundon era, right? What are the things that Carolina has not done in the Tom Dundon era? They have not gone into free agency and gone after the biggest fish, Michael Bunting, Dmitry Orlov, the number one defenseman and one of, if not the biggest forward on the free agent market. They never do that. This year they did. Certainly caught me by surprise. And then what do the Hurricanes never do at the trade deadline? They never give away futures for a rental player. And right now, until a contract is signed, Jake Guentzel would be a rental player. So when I heard all of these things and knowing that Jake Guentzel had told everybody, I mean, he might have signed a contract in Pittsburgh. Like everybody knew Jake Guentzel was going to go into free agency, and he still might. Carolina might even do this deal without Guentzel signing a contract. And we'll get to my opinion about that in a second. But I want to give the Hurricanes organization a super amount of credit because this is something they should have considered. Maybe not the exact deal, but this is the type of thing they should have honestly considered 3 years ago during the crazy pandemic central, 2 years ago when they won the Metropolitan Division for the first time, and last year when they repeated as Metropolitan Division champion. You're trying to tell me that a bona fide goal scorer, especially with long-term injury relief you got from Max Pacioretty's contract, not to mention you could have also used whatever you were paying Andre, right? You could have used all that in LTI. Well, the Andre stuff was already gone. Andre didn't hurt until after the deadline, but you could have replaced Pacioretty's money, and they chose not to. Shane Goss's pay was nice. It's not terrible. But yes, so it was 3 years in a row that the Hurricanes had refused to do anything at the trade deadline. I didn't say refused to do anything. They just did little things. They just improved on the margins. And they needed more in the pandemic year. They needed more than just Fleury or Hakanpää for Fleury. You needed more than Max Domi. You needed more than Shane Gostis. And they didn't do it because they have a philosophy. And this is where you have to say, and give them credit for this too, we'll just call it having a type. The Hurricanes fully believe that a lot of what happens at the deadline is fool's gold. It's hope. And in most cases, again, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but this is their philosophy as an organization. That for all of the teams that give up tons of assets and add and add and add, it doesn't really work out. So what have you done? So unless it's an asset you're going to have going forward, why do it? Florida did it a couple of years ago with Claude Giroux. They got Giroux. They were the President's Trophy winners. And then what happened? Got beat in the second round by Tampa. Boston added a bunch last year. What happened? They got beat in the first round by Florida. So I understand and respect the point. But let me just big picture this. And a lot of it has to do with you. And because I make no bones about it, I do not hide the fact that I am also a fan. Hey, the amount of emotion, not to mention money, that fans invest in teams, sometimes you have to give them a little bit of what they want to. And I understand the organizational philosophy, but we're all not dumb, and we all understand that an extra bona fide goal scorer goes a long way. Because what do we know about playoff hockey? Sometimes it's just one goal. Maybe not even one goal per game. Sometimes it's one goal. If the Hurricanes get that one goal in the first overtime, Remember, Seth Jarvis didn't have the game on his stick with a down-and-out Sergei Bobrovsky, and he clanged it off the bar. But if you just get that one goal and win game one, who knows what happened the rest of the way. I mean, Florida was the better team. I'm not complaining if Florida was the better team. I think they were the better team in all 4 games. But it wasn't dramatic. And if you get the one goal, it changes everything. And also, it shows your fans. This is the bigger picture stuff. It shows your fans that you are in it with them. And even if you're saying, yeah, I'm not sure this is the right thing to do, blah, blah. It's giving them it's giving them an extra jolt too. That's not always the right thing to do, but in the case of Jake Guentzel, you're adding a guy with 40 goal capability. It's an upgrade. Guentzel better than Bunting. Frankly, he's significantly better than Bunting. My overall overarching thought here is, however, that the Hurricanes still need to do something before 3:00 tomorrow. They need to upgrade the 4th center spot. I wouldn't hate to see another depth defenseman added to the mix. So there's still work to be done. Now, real quick, according to what I've been able to gather, Michael Bunting was held from the game tonight, and I think Bunting's in the deal. Obviously, he would be reunited with Kyle Dubas, the GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now he was in Toronto as the GM before leaving that job and becoming the Penguins general manager. So Bunting would go to Pittsburgh. It would not be Carolina's first round pick. It would be a second round pick and a couple of prospects, one of which is probably the defenseman Scott Morrow, who was I think a second round pick a couple of years ago, and a good skater and a really good player, one of the best defensemen in college hockey. But I think most people look at him as maybe not quite a top 4 defenseman at the NHL level. Somebody who can play, he's a good skater. Anyway, don't know, don't really know, but I don't care if you're a top prospect. And Carolina is not giving up Alexander Nikishin, the defenseman who's playing over in the KHL, who I honestly might be the best defenseman in that league right now, based on reports. He'll be here, maybe even at the end of next season. We'll explain what I mean by that in a second. So they're not giving up their top prospect, one of the top prospects in all of hockey, but they're giving up a top 50 prospect. And because Morrow is just on the outside of that. But I don't know who the other prospect is. I don't, but my understanding is one of them would be Morrow. Last time the Hurricanes gave the Penguins a defensive prospect, it was Brian Dumoulin, who is still in the NHL, but has basically been a decent, top 4 NHL defenseman. And then, of course, it went in the Jordan Staal trade. But anyway, if it's Guentzel, and the Hurricanes are going to try and sign him. We'll talk about the potential for that in a second. And if they do sign him, then now it becomes a hockey trade. And I can say, yeah, I wasn't really wrong because the Hurricanes turned it into a hockey trade. But I would argue this. Even if the Hurricanes cannot sign him to a contract, I would tell them to do it anyway. Now, if you can't sign him to a contract, maybe a little bit less goes in the deal. Maybe that's not Morrow. I don't know. And maybe this is what they're trying to figure out here. But if you can sign Jake Guentzel, then you do it. Signing Jake Guentzel, who's I think 29, and to give a 29-year-old an 8-year deal, that doesn't sound very Tom Dundonish to me. And maybe this is what they're dealing with. I wonder if you could convince Jake Guentzel to take a 2-year deal, a 3-year deal, so we can go back into the market again 3 years from now? I'm just throwing that out there. But again, here's what I would argue. Don't worry about the last 2 years of a contract. Don't. I mean, even if you front load the money a little bit and there's not as much money at the end, I mean, the idea this club has a window to win. I think it's bigger, wider than a lot of you do, maybe. It's not just this year. You got Aho signed long term. You got Svechnikov signed long term. You're going to have Jarvis signed long term. You're going to have uh, Slavin signed long term. You have a goalie that might be on the cheap for 3 more years. I think Kochetkov will be their number one goalie next year. Maybe next year it's a timeshare with Frederick Andersen if Andersen is still here. But your goaltending is going to be pretty much below league average for the good teams, for the good goalies, and I think you'll have good goaltending. Um, there's a lot of things that Carolina has going for it in a positive way, even financially. I wouldn't. I would be looking at this. How can we make this the best possible team for the next 5 years? Look at it that. Don't worry about years 6, 7, and 8 of an 8-year deal. I mean, you can always get out from under it. I mean, tons of teams have done it. You can always get out from under it. The only problem would be is if Guentzel's game drops off after 3 years, or even less, which has happened before. Anyway, I just think it says too many good things about what you mean to your fans, what this means to your fans. So I would do it anyway. Um, and I could probably do 30 minutes just on um, the deadline and what else they need. We know that they need an upgrade on Jesperi Kotkaniemi. 41 games now, 2 goals, 4 assists. In now 41 games. That's half the year. Half of a season, 6 points. He's in his own head. He had chances to score tonight, and several actually, and it didn't go. It didn't go. Martin Necas played well again tonight. I don't think it was a great Seth Jarvis performance, but I want to lump those 2 players in together because to me, along with Jalen Chatfield and Steph Nason, I think those 4 players are going to be very interesting conversations in terms of contracts. Jalen Chatfield is another player who is older. He's 29, I believe, but will be 29. So you're not going to give him a 7 or 8-year deal. But Chatfield, I think, is probably the kind of player you can give a 5-year contract to. And what will that 5-year contract look like? Is Jalen Chatfield a third-pair defenseman, or is he somebody that can play in your top 4? I say that's B. And I think if also let me throw Brett Pesce in here. Brady Skjei is done pricing himself out of the market for Carolina. I don't think Carolina's given Brady Skjei $7.5 million. But a defenseman, a left shot defenseman with those kind of moves and those kind of hands, he's getting paid. He's going to go to Minnesota. He'll get 7 times 7.5, and I don't think Carolina's going to do that. I really don't. No matter how good he is, I think Brett Pesce, because there's not that offensive kicker for any contract. I think you're talking about something in the neighborhood of 5.5 to 6. And I also don't think that there's going to be a ton of years on it. Brett's body probably isn't going to age well. Again, also, he's in his late 20s too. There's no chance that's going to be an 8-year deal, but there could be some heartstrings tugged and say, hey, look, Brett, we want you to be here. We want you to be a time Hurricane. So let's do something. We'll do it 4 years. Let's just say 24 over 4. It's about 6 a year. Maybe it's a shade less. Maybe it's 22 over 4, 5.5 a year. And let's make this a marriage that we're keeping together. Certainly 5.5. You're not going to. You're not going to have. We're not going to have a telethon for you. I'm just kind of spitballing here. I think there's a chance that Brett Pesce stays around, and you've got maybe Slavin and Pesce on one pair, and Nikishin and Chatfield eventually on a second pair. Look. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I think Chatfield's a top four NHL defenseman the way he skates. I think he's got offensive instincts as well. So I look forward to seeing him around for a long time. Of course, I'm spending time on the money. But Jarvis and H is two real and interesting points here because um, Jarvis is going to be here for a long time, and Necas is, of course, the wild card here. Both are restricted free agents after this season. Necas has arbitration rights, which is probably going to put him in the neighborhood of between 6 and 7, somewhere in that range. But if Necas has a good finish to this season, and he was very good tonight again, and plays well in the postseason, now Carolina's got a player. Hey, they might have already decided that when it's over, when this year is over, whenever that is, that they are going to trade his rights and recoup a bunch. And they could do that. Or you can figure out a number and keep a 24-year-old kid with that kind of ability, that kind of electricity around for the next 8 years. Necas's game, he's young enough. I want to get the exact age if I can, simply because I think it's important here. So he's 25. I mean, you keep that guy around till he's 33. 33 ain't old. He's going to get stronger. One thing I will say about Necas, he has a desire to be great. I do. I believe it. I think he's serious about it. And I think he came out of his little injury with a reset. He's been one of their best forwards, really, legitimately one of their best forwards for the last month and a half. If that continues into the playoffs, then I think you owe it to the organization to re-sign him. You do. And again, RFA, so you still have some level of control. Jarvis, the entry level contract is just drying up, so you have all the control in the world. It's very possible that that's a short deal, a 2-year deal, 3-year deal, and then deal with the long-term contract the next time. But once again, I'll tell you, Jarvis is 22. 22? 22. So why not do 8 years? Or, I mean, if you're the Hurricanes, you'd rather do 8 years now. But if you're Jarvis, you might want to do 2 and see if you can't kick in an extra offensive gear, which would probably, bump the contract up $2 million. But if you're the Hurricanes, you don't mind taking the risk. I don't think. I don't think you mind taking the risk at all. So if you do 2 years for Jarvis at 5.5, I think you do it. Because I think Jarvis and Necas and Svechnikov are all going to come in at about the same number, at least right now. Maybe Necas a shade lower, maybe Jarvis right the same thing, maybe on an 8-year deal. If you're the Hurricanes, and spending Tom Dundon's money as the salary cap goes up, and knowing that you've got some opportunity to stay inexpensive. By the way, that's the key. You want to keep your high-priced players, you better find young players and guys like Jalen Chatfield, who maybe you dig out of somebody else's organization, make them. You go, I think that guy can play for us. You got to find your diamonds in the rough. So, we went a long time just talking about the potential. And with all that said, it ain't official yet. Jake Guentzel isn't yet wearing a Carolina Hurricanes uniform. It would be the most popular 59 since Chad LaRose. All right, real quick to the game. Won the gem. It's not a gem tonight. The Brett Pesce pass to Brady Skjei. Easy for me to say. Was the most beautiful thing of the night. These 2 goals were gorgeous. First one, at the end of a cycle, skates in down the left side, stick handles around, 2 Canadians, goes, forehand, backhand, uh, beats Sam Montembeault, to make it 1-1 after the first goal was allowed. Then the third goal was the stretch pass from Fishy, and made it 3-1 late on in the third period, about 4.5 left. Great pass, really, I mean, superb pass, and great finish from Skjei, who, man, 10 goals on the year. He had 18 a year ago. If the Rangers knew then what we know now, they would have asked for 2 first-round picks. It's really one of the best trades in Hurricanes history. They gave up, they gave up a pick that ended up being number 2 overall, but I believe that was Alexis Lafreniere, right? Or was it number 1 overall? I don't even remember now. I think it was if it was either that or Capo Caca, I don't know. But it was one of those players. Good players, but not game-changing players. And you cannot put a price on what Brady Skjei has meant to this team in now 4 seasons. He's just tremendous. Really is. He's been amazing. And I hope Carolina has a plan to see if they can keep him because he's that good and that important. But Jacob Slavin's going to get a contract when this year's up. And because they're not going to wait to go into next year, Slavin's going to get a contract. Here's a guy also up there in years. But man, Slavin is such an incredible skater and an incredible athlete. I'm not worried so much about him aging, just like Brent Burns. I'm not really worried about it. Heck, Brent Burns might get another contract from this team for all we know. But Slavin is going to get a contract, and you got Nikishin coming in for the start of 25. And real quick on that, the KHL season ends at the end of March. So at the end of next March, a year from now, when their season ends, and because the playoffs end, when their season ends, the Hurricanes might be able to bring him over at the end of next season. So they might be looking at an addition to their team that they don't have to trade for, something like that. All right, we try to keep these around 30 minutes, so I'm kind of running out of time here. So let's just, marvel at Frederick Andersen tonight. So Andersen has not played since November 2nd. That was a game in New York against the Rangers. They lost 2-1. He played well. I think his first game of the year wasn't great, and Andersen's numbers before tonight didn't look great. But he was getting better. And the beginning of the seasons are always weird anyway. They're all over the place. They're a mess. You're not playing. You're not structured. You're not used to the grind of playing. It takes a while to get into the season. The first, 5, 6, 7 games of the year are always kind of a gong show. And then you get the news that he's got was a deep vein thrombosis or something like that. I couldn't describe it other than I know it's bad blood clotting. And I know that one of 2 things happens. Your blood clots too thick and you could die, or your blood clots too thin and you can't stop bleeding. That ain't good either. And I know there's some airline, there's air traffic questions about it. But Andersen needed to get treatment and needed to get that problem sorted out. And I totally understand that it took a while. Why it took a while. Then you throw in Frederick's already kind of cautious behavior about his own health. Again, I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying it is, right? We've seen it before. But he comes back tonight. It's the last game before the trade deadline. And once they knew Frederick was coming back and they saw the way Kochetkov had been playing, and then you got Spencer Martin, who, by the way, was sitting 2 booths down from me tonight, watching the game here. and you have Martin, who has played very well since getting here, and the Hurricanes are going to figure out a way to keep him in the organization. I am positive of that. And you just got to give Andersen a ton of credit for persevering through all of it. And then he comes on the ice tonight and allows a shaky goal, the first goal. It was deflected right off the shot, but Andersen was too deep and Andersen was too low. So it's a goal that, he's not going to be crazy about. It's not the worst goal we've ever seen, but it's not it's not as bad as the one Kochetkov allowed uh, off the stick of Kyle Connor in the third period on Saturday. But he didn't like it. But after that, oh boy, that was great, Freddie Andersen. And now Carolina's going into the home stretch of the season with 21 games left to play. I'm sorry, 20 games left to play. And the Hurricanes are suddenly going, I think our goaltending's good, like legit good. Like two guys who are very different, who are going to push each other and challenge each other to be great just to keep the net. If Andersen wants to play, he's going to have to play well every night. And we're talking about in the playoffs. They're probably going to do the alternating thing a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if Freddie played against the Devils on Saturday. Kochetkov will play Sunday. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Piotr got the net on Saturday in New Jersey. But I think it'll be Andersen, and then Kochetkov will get Sunday. And by the way, the Hurricanes will be playing. They'll have back-to-back Saturday and Sunday the next 2 weeks. They'll play Tuesday and Thursday of each of the 2 weeks. By the way, for the rest of the month of March, Thursdays will be on home ice. And the Hurricanes will also have, I think a Thursday, Friday. They have back-to-backs the next 3 weeks. This week, next week, the week after. Hurricanes are. It's going to be a busy month, and they're going to need all three. They might need all. I don't think they'll use all four goalies. They might need all three goalies. To be honest, who knows? We're only a little misstep away from Andersen or Kochetkov being here. So I just want to tip my cap to Andersen for coming back, for playing well, and it appeared that somebody was cutting onions behind Freddie during the bench interview with Hannah Yates. Andersen is not given to emotion. It's the stoic Dane about him. But you could tell that tonight meant something. And I think all of us who are kind of romantics about sports, yeah, I think we all dig it. I do. Let me see if I can't go through a couple of comments in here quickly. From Daniel. Australia? Yeah, bruh. We are huge in Adelaide. Why are you surprised, Mr. Parks? I know who you are. Yes. Huge in Adelaide and in Perth. Not only two different cities, two different parts of Australia, two different time zones. I don't know where Perth is all the way on the west coast of Australia. Adelaide, more definitely in the east, where most of the civilized people. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. The people in Perth, we're huge. We're huge in Perth. Obviously, a lot of people are super fired up for Frederick Andersen's return, and as Andy Johnson points out, Jake Guentzel, if in fact this thing does get over the line, Jake Guentzel is a dynamite 5-on-5 hockey player. So here's what Andersen did in his first game back, and we're going to close on this. This comes from Big Head Hockey on Twitter. I have no idea what Big Head Hockey is, but I'm just going to read the numbers here. 24 saves, 25 shots, 960 save percentage. That's all well and good. 1.8 goals saved above expected. In other words, should have been 3 goals on the board pretty much for Montreal. Hard to argue with that. He was very good. Of course, there could have been 3 because there were 2 posts hit. And 9 for 9 on high danger scoring chances. Um, Pretty good. 2 good goalies. I'm going to leave Spencer Martin out of this for now. 2 good goalies, a defensive core that is playing pretty well. Got it. Number 22 is very key for the next 3 months of hockey. Need to get the best out of Brett Pesce. And if you can put Jake Guentzel on your ice, and when this becomes final, then we can start playing around with combinations. Does Guentzel play on the right with Aho and Svechnikov? Is he comfortable doing that? Like, I kind of think that Guentzel can play the right. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't see why the guys can play their offside. Teravainen plays his offside all the time. So if Guentzel can play the right with Aho and Svechnikov, it's a pretty good top line. And now you got to find somebody to play on that second line. If it's Nason certainly is a good enough player to warrant more ice time. The way Drury's playing, Necas is playing. Now, if I could further delve into Tom Dundon's pocket, what I would do here is I would go out and get myself an upgraded 4C, or maybe even shoot a little higher and see if you can't get somebody to who can score, really score in the middle of the lineup. Anyway, should be fun over the next, 12 to 16 hours. With that said, I'm Adam Gold. This has been the Canes Corner podcast live on YouTube. Give us a rating, give us a review. Give us, I don't know how you do that. You can like and subscribe, tell all your friends, and you can join us here after every Hurricanes game. And the next Hurricanes game is a Saturday afternoon game, and hopefully the same thing will not happen this Saturday afternoon as happened last Saturday afternoon. Hurricanes will be in New Jersey to take on the Devils. The next day they'll be back here, take on the Flames. That'll be a 5:00 start. But the podcast will roll probably around 4:30-ish, 4-ish, something like that. So we'll be on YouTube, and of course you can always find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it's for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Anderson going to do a great job. We'll see everybody Saturday on the Canes Corner podcast, and I thank you for hanging out.